session is around Digit. What I'll be taking you through is our journey in terms of how Digit came about, what is the broad set of questions that we've been posing on how technology can help government, and what are the key questions that we contemplate about. These, given the limited time, each of these questions are fairly deep, and we have all partial answers as we are learning with through our experiences. And I'll share some of our experiences in terms of why we have shaped or designed Digit based on the experiences that we've had, and happy to engage with you on some of these ongoing thought process. So Digit is, like I said, Digit is still evolving, and your inputs will help shape this. So broadly, from my standpoint, this is our sharing our learning in terms of what we have learned so far, and I'm hoping we can also engage and learn from your experiences as well. So of course we are eGov. A lot of this is most of you know, a lot of our focus is how do we help improve public service delivery for the citizens by enabling transparent, equitable public service delivery for all the citizens. And so how we do it is basically catalyze public service delivery. There are three pieces of the puzzle. One is the open source platform like Digit. We focus on building local ecosystems and local capacity. And of course, how ensuring that markets are also participating so that it can scale and sustain. And these are three things that we kind of care about. We work across multiple sectors. Some of these are within eGov, and then some of them are in jointly we are co-creating with partners. And there are some of these impact numbers in terms of what we've been able to accomplish. So eGov has had 22 years of journey. We started in 2003, very early when in Bangalore, in our home city, where the city was growing very rapidly, and there was a need for improving public services in Bangalore itself. That's where we started. We built integrated ERP systems for Chennai, which continues to operate there. We've delivered. We've over the years we've talked about the architectures and how we've done this digitization. We've worked with large states like Andhra Pradesh and Punjab in India. Punjab is around 127 cities. How do you enable delivery of services across large number of cities through a shared digital infrastructure kind of approach? And how we've learned that it's not just about technology. Unless until we build a network of partners and ecosystems, these things don't sustain. And of course, now we are trying to go beyond India, and also learn across various globe what are the various ways we can help transformation in public services across the world. So what are the key questions that we think about? And these are not all the questions, but these are questions that we think are important to think about when we are looking at how do you leverage technology to transform public service delivery, or how do you enable technology to enable governments to deliver services better. One is this whole notion around citizen centricity and inclusive design. Means how do we design from a citizen's perspective, making public services simple, inclusive, accessible for all. And these are there are two separate questions in terms of, are we digitizing existing processes so that it becomes easy for governments to deliver services, or are we designing to make it easy for citizens to access services? Depending on how you're going to frame the problem, the system design architecture significantly varies. Second, it's been our experience that many times digitization happens, but truly it is never paperless. A lot of systems get built, adoption doesn't happen. Even if adoption happens, there's a paper-based workflow that continues to happen in parallel. So really, you've actually increased the work within the departments, and so a lot of that is challenges that we've seen over the years. Digitization happens in silos, is often fragmented. How do we enable this at scale across thousands of departments, sectors, geographies? How do we do it at speed and scale? These are questions that we kind of contemplate about. Of course, security as data, as you do digitization, how do you ensure data is secure? How do we ensure the data is used with proper authorization? Whose authorization is important? I think a lot of those questions start becoming relevant. Sustainability, how do we ensure that often we go and intervene is one thing, but how do we, once you get out, the system starts faltering. How do you ensure you build local ecosystems, local capacity to drive, sustain digital systems and transformations that are happening? So that's an important question that we kind of think about. Reuse, of course, there are different digitization and happening in every administrative jurisdiction, but all of them are doing reinventing the same thing over and over again. How do we ensure reuse of common components? How do we do that? Data sharing, big challenge again. How do we facilitate secure, responsible data sharing while preserving privacy and trust? How do we data-driven decision? How do we ensure that availability of good data, even if digitization happens, many don't trust the data in their own systems. They don't use it for data-driven decision making. How do we ensure good quality of data? There is trust in the data, and that the administrators actually use it for data-driven decisions. And another key problem is, of course, market innovations without vendor lock-in. How do we address markets can innovate fast, but there are a lot of failures, especially in priority areas. And how do we ensure where public investment, private innovation, both can come together, because both are essential for making some of these. So these are some of the questions that kind of we've learned over the last are important over the last 22 years to really deliver uh, to answer these questions before we can deliver at speed, scale, and ensure there is sustainable digitization. So things that is if I may summarize what our learnings has been is, one is the need to build a vibrant ecosystem of partners, whether it's government, system integrators, societal partners, and also from a technology architecture perspective, you use a more shared, a platform-based kind of an architecture, open, shared, modular digital platform. And these two things we believe are very key in ensuring at scale digitization. If there's one thing that you want to take away from this presentation is just this slide for me. So I'll give you one example as to how this has happened, what we've experienced. Especially a great example for us is Orissa. Orissa is basically a state in India. Population is around 45 million. They have 154 urban local bodies. And as a developing country, several urban challenges, right? Slums, access to water, sanitation issues, sewage issues. A lot of those challenges are rampant in many of these places. And so government in Orissa, of course, has been running multiple programs to address many of these urban challenges. And they've chosen a Digit basically as a shared infrastructure. And all these programs, whether it's for municipal service delivery, for fecal sludge management, sanitation worker welfare, urban livelihood programs, and slum. So they've been running multiple of these programs, leveraging an ecosystem of partners, whether they are SIs or they are societal partners. So all of them have come together to work on various aspects of these programs over the years, and they've actually built it on a common shared infrastructure provided by Digit. This has enabled them to do this at scale across large number of urban local bodies. So the same shared infrastructure is used for multiple programs by multiple partners across multiple local bodies. So this is one great example in terms of what Digit is able to enable, or a shared infrastructure with a network approach is able to enable. And of course, some of these principles is what we've kind of encoded into Digit. And so there are the same thing is happening in multiple sectors by different sets of partners. Some of them are, of course, co-created with eGov, which that you can see on the right hand of the screen. These are Sujog or in public finance or in local governments and of course public health. So there are many programs that we are enabling along with various partners. And then some of them partners are doing it independently as well. Whether it is Deloitte working for Goa Industrial Corporation, whether it is MSC doing it for on the agri stack in Bihar, or Agami working on open courts in Kerala. So there are many of these, given the platform is open, many of these partners are actually working on top of the platform and delivering large-scale public service transformation across multiple geographies. So if you look at Digit broadly, two ways you can, what is Digit? It's of course an open source platform for public service delivery for all levels of government. It's designed as a shared multi-tenant platform, enables reuse across services, departments, and geographies. There are two broad ways you can use Digit. One, as a shared infrastructure within a department to deliver multiple services. It could be trade license, property tax. You can run it on the same shared infrastructure. Or you can actually run Digit as a shared infrastructure across multiple agencies. It could be multiple cities, it could be multiple departments. So you could run it as a shared infrastructure for across lines of department as well. So this kind of model basically enables, of course, reduced cost. It enables rolling out. If you're rolling out a service in across multiple jurisdiction, you can accelerate your rollout. It enables data sharing. And given Digit is all API based, and it enables it's open infrastructure. It also enables local innovation on top of the shared infrastructure. So one other way to think about Digit is how it streamlines interactions between service providers. The service providers could be departments, urban local bodies, agencies, parastatals, the ones that who offer services, right? Or service consumers. And so it facilitates interaction between multiple service providers and of course service consumers could be citizens, businesses seeking service. And often in many cases, these are facilitated through service intermediaries. It could be frontline workers or community-based organizations or digital service aggregators, call centers, basically service centers, kiosks, chatbots. So you could use these are intermediaries that are, of course, enable citizens to access services. Or you're looking at service partners who work with the government, who are vendors or partners of the government who enable the governments deliver the services. So you can look at Digit as how do you facilitate or streamline interactions between these various agencies. So typically, if you look at think about digitization in government, often traditional digitization tends to happen within the administrative jurisdictions, leading to vertical silos. There is and this is fairly prevalent. So I'm sure most of you understand this. This kind of approach leads to fragmented user experience, whether it's for the citizen, whether it's for employees, administrators. They all have to navigate multiple systems with inconsistent interfaces and logins, etc. When you're building the system, there's a lot of duplicate effort. Each team is actually building the same set of features, payments, logins, approvals across multiple departments, wasting precious resources and time. And the data becomes siloed and locked into these various systems. And then we have this large integration problem of keeping data in sync. Whether you're trying to deliver benefit to the citizen, you have to verify across multiple departments and of course from an administrative standpoint, getting data to be able to make a data-driven decision becomes very challenging. But this is typically how most of the digitization efforts kind of start. One of the alternate ways that we've been kind of talking about is how do you use a platform-based approach to digitization rather than using a siloed-based approach, more as a horizontal set of stacks. So you have this shared infrastructure which consists of shared services and shared data. And then you have these apps layer, service consumer apps, which are used by various frontline intermediaries or businesses or citizens themselves. So this is how you deliver the services. And then there is a service provider apps, which is basically enables the employees of the government, vendors, etc., to deliver services. Now, this kind of at a broad base, if this kind of architecture used to leverage, you basically enables a unified experience. A single consistent interface for all stakeholders can be made available through this kind of approach. The reuse increases significantly because the services become reusable across multiple service lines, the common services, and also data sharing of data across multiple service lines become easy. Now, this can, like I said earlier, this can happen in departments. Even in many departments, there are multiple apps and systems, and we've seen a single department adopt Digit as a shared platform for all their services, and we've also seen Digit being adopted as a shared platform for multiple agencies or multiple urban local bodies and to deliver multiple services. So both these approaches can be we can look at from a platform-based approaches. And just diving deeper here in terms of what this looks like when you talk about Digit shared services, what are these shared services? These could be tenant or account, authentication, authorization, workflow, encryption, file store, billing, payments. I mean, there are 20 to 25 services on Digit. I'll of course share the link. You can go through that. And then the shared data would mean like individuals or households, organization, employee, asset, vehicle, facility, boundary, property. These can be shared data registries that can be made available. And these are all used by multiple departments during delivery of services or verification, etc. So broadly, this is the architecture that digitization architecture that leads to a platform kind of approach, which then enables faster service delivery, unified access of all multiple services to the citizens, and also enables service providers to leverage the shared services to deliver new services or modify their services much faster. So one of the other things that we do with Digit is, of course, as the interactions are happening between the service consumers and the intermediaries and service providers and their partners, the Digit basically we emit the service events. These service events basically contain who did what, when, how, where. These are standardized service events that get emitted out of Digit and then get stored into an event store. This allows for all the required analytics from a service monitoring perspective, service performance perspective, and a lot of this can then lead to continuous improvements, provides a unified view to the administrators, either who are operating the service from a operating perspective, or they are using or they are doing it basically from a policy perspective. Both ways, this data can then be leveraged um, for continuously improving the service delivery. So building these kind of systems, there are certain design principles that we've learned, of course, over the years. Broadly, I bucket them into two sets in terms of robustness and ease of use. These are the principles that we continuously strive towards. So one is, of course, open, ensure it is open source, complies as much as possible to the open standards to ensure transparency and trust and easy and from an interoperability perspective. How do we ensure it is modular, composable, so that we can evolve each of these services over time and not get logged in into specific technologies. We ensure that this works across public and private cloud infrastructure. They are not logged in. Their platform, and they can be deployed anywhere. They're secure and private, so we continuously keep looking at improving security. So over the years, many of these issues have been identified and fixed. So today, I can safely say there's a lot of robust security principles that are built into Digit. Sorry, that should be privacy, security and privacy. Performant, of course, now since you're dealing with services, citizen services, often at scale, and you're building a shared infrastructure which is supposed to deliver services to, let's say, 10, 15 million people. You need to be performant, and it needs to be throughput. So a lot of work has gone in terms of ensuring Digit is built for high throughput and reliable, uh, and can operate at scale in a cost-effective manner. Um, a lot of reuse we talked about in terms of reuse of services and also reuse of data, and also trustworthy. How do you ensure single source of truth, avoid duplication and fragmentation of data? So these are key principles that are very dear to us. And when we design Digit, we kind of go back to these principles and see how we can keep improving on this. At the same time, how do we make it easy for use and easy for adoption? Because a lot of the work that we do also are in low capacity environments. How do we make it easy to install? And the challenge always is to balance robustness and ease of use. A lot of things that make systems robust also make it very difficult to maintain, manage, and implement. So how do we balance the ease of use aspect? How do you ensure it is easy to install? How do you ensure it's easy to configure? How do we make it easy for developers to build on top of Digit? How do we make it easy to integrate with existing systems if they make it easy for migration to happen? What are the tools, technologies that need to be provided for that? How do we make it easy to monitor and operational observability dashboards, etc., to track performance of each of the service so that they can be delivered in a reliable manner? So these are things that broadly go into design of Digit. Um, so right now Digit is the version that is there is 2.9, which is an LTS release. What LTS means is long-term support. We committed to supporting as eGov, supporting Digit 2.9, basically the core services of Digit. These are fairly stable. We've seen this reuse across multiple sectors, and over a period of time, the APIs have stabilized. So we've actually rolled out a long-term support version for Digit called Digit 2.9. Last year, we rolled this out, and we've committed that we'll continue to support this for the next 5 years. This basically provides a stable version for the ecosystem to kind of build on. What we have promised is that the security and performance, of course, Digit is built with a lot of open source technologies and libraries, and critical issues keep popping up in those libraries. And so we continue to monitor those open source technologies and libraries, and wherever there is critical patches that needs to be done, we make those patches, we streamline those patches. We proactively update it to ensuring all the industry best practices that are evolving. We ensure that the APIs are stable so that the ecosystem does not need to keep changing their systems that they have built on top of Digit. We maintain backward compatibility, and basically so there. And also, if you are upgrading to newer patch releases, so there's upgrade friction is minimized. So a lot of these work is actually being done by the Digit platform team. So this gives a base version on which basically governments and partners can confidently build on, and you can count us on the support, especially on the security. If you are getting into any security or performance issues, we will resolve those issues. However, we're not stopping from innovating. Things are changing on ground, as we know, a lot of stuff happening on the technology side and even on public service delivery side. So we are working on Digit 3.0. This is the alpha version of Digit 3.0 should come out in a quarter. So what are we basically looking at in Digit as we are going into various global many countries, what we are learning, and we are trying to incorporate those into Digit 3.0. One is Digit has been built for primarily for scale, but we are trying to look at how do we optimize the core to so that many countries can get started with smaller use cases, so it works, and then they can scale as they go along. So how do you start small and scale? So we're trying to get that going. For that, we are also trying to look at a light model of Digit, so that you can do a progressive rollout, basically optimized for small scale deployments, so you can start and scale when you are ready. So that's something that we are working on. There are many small cities who want to use Digit and can't afford the kind of infrastructure that currently Digit requires. We're working on that, and trying to ensure that even the core becomes more efficient. We're providing some tools like admin console to make it easy for configuration. There's a UI which will make it easy to configure many of the core services. Today, the core services needs to be configured from the backend, so through APIs. So that so basically providing a easy to configure UI for that. We're building a service studio so that some of the simple services can be actually configured from the service studio without too much of engineering help. To make Digit easy to develop, for developer friendly, we are basically building client libraries for various platforms. So today, the developers has to make calls to many Digit services. So we will provide a Digit SDK, which will allow them to actually build on Digit, whether they are building on the consumer side app or the provider side services. It'll become easier for them to build on that, and of course easier deployment. This is something we have been continuously working on. How do we streamline deployments? We keep the scripts updated. The underlying systems keep changing a lot, so a lot of work goes on in keeping the installation scripts updated and ensuring that we test it and make it work on multiple cloud platforms, which themselves are very dynamic, and they are continuously upgrading. So we need to keep testing these scripts and ensuring that they don't get into issues when you are deploying the platform. So a lot of that work is going behind the scenes, to ensure that it becomes easy for installation, making it easy for developers and business users as well. So you'll hear more about Digit in the coming weeks. Stay tuned. So one of the things that we've also done is set up a Digit Governance Council. As we go global and Digit is getting deployed in multiple places and used by multiple partners, the responsible thing to do was to set up a governance council who guides us on what are the decisions that we are making, and review some of these decisions. So we basically invited some of the key experts who've done this before at scale. So we have Aaron, who's led government digital transformation for a number of years for multiple countries. We have Richard Pope, who's a well-known author of a book called Platform Land. He was part of the UK.gov team. He's a great guy to understand how to build transparent public services. Sam Asher is an economist, and he's also the co-founder for development data lab. He's helping us think through the data aspects of Digit and service delivery. How do you ensure we build trusted data? How do we ensure these we move towards the data-driven decision making? And Sam understands that space very well. Vijay Bujuni, who was also an architect with Aadhaar, which is India's unique ID system, national ID system. He understands how to build systems at population scale. And so these four gentlemen are helping us think through the next versions of Digit and also basically help us think through various decisions that we are making on Digit. And of course, I can't not talk about AI. So there is stuff that we are doing with on AI, and some of this will start showing up on Digit as well. We've basically partnered with IIT Kanpur in one of the AI COEs that the government of India has set up as a consortium partner, and we are working on service delivery and governance. The large number of AI experts in the consortium who are building AI and deploying AI-based solutions for public services. A lot of the learnings that we'll have from that will start flowing into Digit. So these are still very early days. So this will improve Digit data and AI capability, something that we get asked for in multiple forums. And basically, this will help. Basically, we'll work very closely with partners to make it easy for you leverage AI to basically make it easy for citizens to access services. How do you enable AI-powered decision supports, workflows, predictive analytics for administrators? So some of this you'll start seeing as showcases or prototypes, and if they are mature enough, we'll build it into the platform as well. So this is what I wanted to share with all of you. So this is exciting time for public service delivery. And please do visit the Digit website. This is also an invitation for you to try out Digit. There's a Digit Academy. We put out a lot of content in terms of how do you install, how do you work on Digit. A lot of documentations are in place. You will find mistakes. Please point them out. We are fixing them. Try out some of the try the Digit platform out, and basically please engage with us. Please contribute back. It's a lot of open source. Hopefully, some of the partners have started contributing back to Digit, which is very encouraging for us. And we're looking forward to engaging with you on Digit and building basically the next generation of public services. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them right now.
Thank you, Manish. So just reiterating the two key highlights and the takeaways from today's presentation is one, that if we have open, shared, and modular digital platform along with the network ecosystem, then the transformation is bound to happen. So opening the forum for all to ask questions. So please put your questions on chat or Q&A. There is one already there, so I'll read out for all the audience, and Manish, you can answer that. It's basically more on the capacity and sustainability angle. So I'm just reading that question. So it says, to ensure and enable sustainability of any program or modular usage or adoption, it requires local resources to use the system regularly. And how can government ensure having local resources use the system regularly, given the fact that they are not permanent employees, leave jobs whenever get better roles, which is also happening in private sectors, and engage through different mechanisms? So example, outsourcing staff at ULBs, contractual staff at ULBs, as these are the personals who are actually using the digital platform across offices in India.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I don't know if I have a great answer to that. These are realities on the ground, absolutely. And I think one is trying to change those realities on ground. That is one part of the puzzle, which is mostly to do a lot to do with policy, and at the local level. Second is keeping those realities on and building those systems, right? Saying that, assuming that there will be temporary staff, and what is the best that we can do to, how do we make it easy for temporary staff to onboard on the system? How do we make it ensure that the system interfaces are built in a manner in which there is no long-term, training required, and the training is inbuilt into those. As a lot of those are actually at a product level and interface design level. But I think this is a hard question. I don't have a good answer for that, but I think we need to be basically the people who are designing the products and the interfaces have to think deeply about that. That is the reality on the ground, and what is the best that can be done. Even simple things like ensuring uh, proof of work, so that payment can be done faster, so that people don't leave things. Those are things that we are also aware of, that people, a lot of churn happening because there's delayed payments. So how do you ensure there is proof of work, there is payments and attendance, and all of this stuff is made available digitally, so that there is more trust in the system built, and you're using digitization not just for automation, but for building trust in the system, uh, and the data is shared with the right people, so that the flow of information and the flow of money is streamlined. So there are large number of problems there, and I don't claim to know all the answers. So hopefully, partly I've answered that question.
There is one more question, Manish. I think it's from James. So he's asking, what is your approach to cybersecurity?
Yeah. So uh, so cybersecurity, I think, is going to be, is at a broad level, is a shared responsibility. There are a lot of things that we can do at the platform level. There are things that we can do at platform level. Uh, so one is look at the larger framework. There are interesting frameworks like NIST has put out for the larger security, and we look at those frameworks as well. And then there are actually code level systems like MITRE, etc., which you can look at your code, analyze your code systems through the tools provided by the MITRE team. We continuously look at that score, and continue to update, upgrade, identify those issues, and upgrade those issues. So both top down, in terms of how do we enable, um, uh, basically identification, monitoring, prevention, basically that whole full cycle of prevention, identification, and recovery, etc. So there's a full cycle that needs to be built in. So whether you're looking, and many of those cover issues like authentication, authorization, auditing, encryption, backups. So many of these things are actually baked into the platform. The things that can be built into the platform are actually getting built into the platform. We are also putting out guidelines to developers on what they need to do at the product level or the solution level that they are building out. Because so there is, if you go to digit.org, there is a security and privacy guidelines for developers who are building on top of Digit, and also for people who are actually implementing on the ground. So the many issues need to be addressed by, actually, the from the implementation standpoint, in terms of, even if you build everything into the product and the platform, if you don't follow a certain set of implementation guidelines, then there will be leakages and holes in place. So I think some of those are also we are putting out, on from the other aspect is VAPT, which is vulnerability and penetration testing. We get digit a VAPT done on digit every year. And that report is also available. Nowadays, at a code level, a lot of the AI tools are now available to actually look at your tools. Many of those are development good best practices that we are trying to follow to ensure those are also taken care of. But so there is a section in, if you go to digit.org, where we have outlined all the things that we are doing on security and privacy.
So, Manish, we have five more questions.
Sure.
Starting with the first, which is a bit long, but I'll read it for our audience to know what this question is. In state where existing enterprise or ERP systems are functioning effectively, but in siloed approaches, how can the Digit platform be integrated or introduced, considering the significant monetary investment the government must allocate for development, customization, legacy data migration, and ongoing operation and maintenance? Additionally, given that the state-owned resources currently lack familiarity with Digit, resulting in reliance on large consulting firms like PwC, Nucleo, and others, how critical is the government budget allocation in influencing the decision to adopt Digit, and what financial challenges and consideration must be addressed to ensure sustainable implementation?
Hmm. Uh, So let me break this. There seems to be multiple questions there. One related with if there is existing systems already in place. Um, uh, uh, One is, um, see, so question that I will always ask is, what is the motivation to migrate to a newer system? You don't, just because Digit exists, I don't think you should be migrating. If things are working fine, there is no reason for you to. There's the local capacity that it is working, it is sustenance. So I think there is no reason to migrate to Digit. There are but in cases, most of the migration happens, of Digit happens when there are large programs that government is trying to run and roll out. So they don't have to do lock, stock, barrel migration firstly, right? You can take a single service, and if you're rolling it out to a multiple, and this is the whole idea around modular, that in the ERP world, if you're doing a migration, which means you have to do a lock, stock, barrel migration kind of stuff. In the Digit or a platform architecture, you don't necessarily, you can take one service and roll it out. Then when the next program runs, which is what Orissa did. So they ran first program, first some few services were migrated. Then the next program ran next year, and a few more services got migrated, and that's how they built on the Digit platform, and slowly migrated the data from the ERP into the Digit systems. So I think, because a lot of these were initially, these were all fragmented systems working at different city levels, and some of them were working, some of them were not working, and there was no governance around it. So in those kind of scenarios, they've kind of consolidated and migrated onto a Digit kind of or a platform kind of an architecture. So that was one part of the system, which is a technical question as to how do you migrate, when do you migrate, part of the question. Second is budgetary support is really so I'm presuming there are conversations happening between, especially in India, the conversation happening between the Upyog team, which is at Mahua, and various states on the budgetary pieces, capacity, capability pieces. So I think some of those conversations, I'm not necessarily privy to it, but many of those conversations I know they're kind of happening. And uh, so some budget basically comes from, of course, the that side. Some budget, of course, the state puts in terms of the programs that they are trying to run. So instead of looking at funding from that migration to Digit or Upyog perspective, So by the way, I don't know if the person asked the question. So Digit was basically adopted and converted by Mahua into Upyog. So right now the Upyog is built on 2.9, Digit 2.9. So it is there. So for some of the simple services, like I said, we are working towards making it easier for the local governments to be able to build using things like Digit Studio, a low code, no code kind of a platform where they can configure services by themselves. We're also trying to make it easier for people to develop on Digit using from some libraries perspective. Some of the services were actually built by eGov. Those are already part of Upyog, that comes part of Upyog, like property tax and miscellaneous collections and stuff like that. These are apps that were already built on top of the platform, and they are part of the. So those many of those are can be rolled out as is in most of the cases. So I don't know if I have answered the question in completion, but yeah.
So aligning to this question, there is also one similar question. I'll read that out first and then go to others. So the question is, in terms of integrating digital products with existing government systems, how can we ensure an efficient data architecture when there are technical infrastructure limitations, especially when the scale and velocity of data is a big issue?
Sorry, can you repeat the last sentence?
How can we ensure an efficient data architecture when there are technical infrastructure limitations, and especially when the scale and velocity of data is a big issue?
Yeah. So I think my thinking is one is we need to unbundle this word data primarily into one is um, uh, so we need to separate out systems of transaction from systems of record and systems of analysis. So let's see these three as separate things. One is how do we ensure faster service delivery and transaction, and how do we empower citizens and make it easy for citizens to access services. So there is that part of the question, and the data architecture that is required for that is slightly different than systems of record, which is basically registries and how do you ensure truth in the systems, and deduplication and quality of data, like whether it is property, whether it's beneficiary, whether it's household, those kind of data. How do we ensure good quality from those perspective? I think, and third is um, basically from planning and monitoring perspective, how are the services getting delivered, where they're getting delivered, where they need to get delivered, a lot of the policy making data. And I think there are three separate questions, and we should, in my view, we should separate these three questions out in terms of when determining the data architecture. So data for whom? Data for citizens, it requires a very different type of architecture. Data for ensuring truth, establishing truth, or registries is a very different type of data architecture that you're looking at. And data for analysis and or policy making or planning is a very different type of data architecture. The moment you unbundle these three questions, then it becomes easier to solve the data problem in my view, right? And then means then we can have a further discussion on the nature of the data architecture that is required. But hopefully in my view, that is the starting point of that. First, we need to unbundle those three questions and then look at those three things separately.
Okay, so moving to next question. The question is, what is the level of customization in health campaign management in rural area using Digit is required?
What is the level of customization will be determined. See, health campaign management primarily is built on as a product. There's a large number of configurations that are actually built in the product itself. You can configure the forms, you can configure workflows, you can configure. So in my view, 95% of it is configurable. There are very rare cases now that the product is matured. There are very few customizations that actually come in. They do come in, but they don't. They have dropped significantly now. I don't see too many of these customizations coming in. In fact, I think the team is now due to roll out an HCM console, which will enable users to be able to do these configurations by themselves. So that's really means an HCM question that we can separately also answer. But I think you should wait for another couple of months. You should see a HCM console being launched, which will allow people to mostly do most of the customizations or configurations, if I should say, by themselves.
Okay. So Ram Hariharan has another question, which will also answer from the admin console that you mentioned, Manish. But I'm reading that question out. What about automation at a developer level? For example, quickly building forms using drag and drop functionality, creating workflows using visual interfaces, integration with other government infrastructure, such as Parichay, e-sign with Aadhaar, etc. Some of these may be already available, and I may not know because I'm fairly new to digital.
Yes. So yes. So from the HCM perspective, a lot of the drag drop functionality is already getting rolled out. We are working on generalizing this and making it available in Digit Studio for all services. In fact, so a lot of work has been done by the HCM team on specific to making customizations of forms, workflows, etc. In case of the health campaign system, and there is work going on which will generalize this and make it available to digital. In fact, one of those are getting rolled out. We are basically piloting that in Djibouti right now. And once we have successfully done it and we are confident enough that this can actually be used by the larger ecosystem, we'll of course make it available. It is already available. It's in the public domain, but I'm saying launching it formally is something that we will do once we have once we are confident that it is ready to use by the larger ecosystem. Second is sorry, what was the other question? Yeah, e-sign and all that stuff. So many of
Yeah,
these
how do we integrate with the existing
and
system?
from the integrations perspective, so one is wherever there is interoperability, there is so we are moving. So a lot of the things like OIDC, all those OAuth, etc. That those kind of standards we are compliant with. Those are easy to work with. But the moment you get into specific providers who don't necessarily follow those standards, there are adapters that need to be built. Some of them have been built as part of our implementations that are there, and many of this code is available in the in various implementations. We need to do a better job of course pulling those out and making it available for people. But that's part of work that we have to do. We've not done that. Many of these have actually been would be lying here and there in many code repositories. It's just a matter of us doing a job of putting it, listing those down in terms of and making it easy to discover for people.
So next question is from Anand. He says, could you provide some examples at scale with respect to grievance redressal and citizen feedback loop strengthened using Digit to promote responsive and participatory governance?
So the best one that I know of actually is in AP. Of course, right now I know the CP Graham's
CPgram.
team is also working on revamping their entire grievance redressal thing on top of Digit, and that is still work ongoing. But I think one that is working, to my understanding, fairly well is in AP. In fact, a lot of the dashboard, if you go to the AP dashboard, down to the ward level, how many issues are actually being raised, how many have been closed, what are the aging, everything is actually visible even to the citizens. So a lot of so there's been means AP did a great job in terms of making the data also available back to the citizens through open dashboards. and those dashboards were actually being used for review of closure. I think those administrative reforms which actually use the data for monitoring is what eventually makes those systems work on the
Yeah.
ground. So wherever we've seen those administrative reforms happening, where people start using the dashboards, administrators starts using those dashboards for data decision making, the thing starts moving fast. But yes, I think you should look at AP. They've done a decent job on the public grievance.
So next question is from Biru. He asked, most countries now have or developing their enterprise architecture. How do you see Digit fit into this?
Okay. Yeah, so I think a lot of the countries, so of course, there's this whole notion around the whole digital public infrastructure. There are foundational
Yeah.
pieces like ID, payments, etc., that are coming in place. But once you have the ID payments in place, you do need to do service delivery, right? And basically, Digit fits in terms of a service. You'll need a service delivery platform. So you have two approaches to do service delivery. Either you can continue doing a siloed architecture for service delivery and still use a DPI, your ID payments, etc., and all of those pieces, or use a service delivery platform to enable a service delivery at scale. So the way I see it is there is this whole foundational DPI building blocks, and then you see basically a digit on top of that, which allows you to basically enable interactions between the service consumers and the service provider, the same architecture that I kind of showed you here um, in this way. So Digit itself will integrate with all the DPI if the DPIs exist in the country. If you have a national ID system or a payment system, so we have an identity. We have a when you register as a citizen, you could validate against a ID in case that is required through an ID system. You can log in through an ID system. We've done integration with things like MOSIP. There are how-tos in terms of how do you integrate with MOSIP, and Digit is fairly simple to do. If you are in UPI integration or payment systems integration is there's a payment gateway component in Digit which integrates into a payment system. So if the national payment system is there, you can integrate with it. Similarly, from an encryption perspective, verifiable credentials, wallets. Those are things. Some of these are like wallets and verifiable credentials are also getting built into Digit. In Digit 3.0, you will see some of this also coming out. We have issued VCs from Digit in some implementations as well.
There is one more question, Manish. It is from Fazazi. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. This question is about the policy for customization that eGov provides. The question is, if a country wants to deploy Digit, do they have to stick to what eGov policy is, or is it Digit is flexible to be used at a country need level?
No, absolutely. This is open source. It's MIT license. You can use Digit in whichever way that you want to use it. If it fits your use case, we're happy to. If you need help from us to help tell you whether it will fit or not, we're happy to discuss with you and tell you what will be the challenges, etc. Um, uh, so there is nothing. One of the only things that we do advise is from an LTS perspective, if you are using Digit core services, from a long-term support perspective, if you make changes to the core services, then it becomes very difficult for us to maintain and manage it. So either contribute it back or raise it to us. If you're seeing any performance or issues, then we will build and release a patch for you. Then it becomes easy for us to support that. Because if some of and that's a challenge. That's something that we are working on in terms of how do you ensure that while it is open and people can look at it, if people modify it, then our ability to support it becomes less. it diminishes our ability to support custom code. So other than that, I think you should be able to use Digit in whichever way you want.
So, we are almost, we have crossed the time, but there is one more question from Subrat. So I'll just read it out and we can take it briefly. So what is the roadmap for Digit next and how can it be seamlessly integrated to the existing products and services? What support mechanisms are in place to ensure smooth version upgrades and long-term sustainability?
So I did go through the Digit 3.0, basically what is so on Digit 2.9, like I said, we are not making any major functional changes. We continue to evolve Digit to ensure that it is the API, all the functionality is currently stable. It is robust from a security and performance perspective. Any issues that are raised by the community, we try and address that, and we will do a minor patch release for Digit 2.9 series, which is part of our long-term support aspect for the Digit 2.9. On the Digit 3.0, like I said, as we are moving forward, there will be breaking changes in Digit 2.9 because many of the there are better ways of doing many of the things that we were doing in 2.9. So those are being incorporated in Digit 3.0. If I try incorporating those in 2.9, then I'll end up breaking the backward compatibility. Hence, I can't do it there, which is why we are working on Digit 3.0. We're trying to and three things. One, make it more efficient so that you can use it for smaller use cases to start with. Second, providing tools so that people can work on it who are even when there is low capacity in the country, at least for the simple services. Make it more developer friendly so that developers don't have to the learning curve comes down for developers. And third, of course, make it easy to deploy and maintain and manage Digit. So these are things that we are working on, and there's a bunch of stuff that we are doing also on the security aspect to make it more robust. But that's essentially the roadmap for Digit. Every time once we release Digit 3.0, we will also release a migration guide in terms of if you're going to want to migrate from 2.9 to 3.0, what are the changes that you'll have to do. We will release a guide, and any tools that is possible, we will release that.
So we are now towards the end of the session. Thank you so much, Manish, for taking up all the questions and for such an insightful webinar session. Thank you all the participants for engaging and participating in question and answer. Thank you so much. We'll look forward to other webinar session. I have posted the link on the chat box. Please go and visit eGov website. On the events tab, you can also find all the webinar series, the other learning series that are in place. You can register and access. Also, the documentation of the Digit can be accessed on docs.digit. So we are happy to host you next time. Till next time, thank you so much and looking forward. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shida.